Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have two very special guests, Roberta Glass, who's been on my show many, many times, and also Phil Fairbanks, who I interviewed about his book, The Politics, was it pedophilia? Was it The Politics of Pedophilia, Phil? What remind me of the
Pedogate Primer, Politics of
Pedogate
Pedophilia.
Primer. And I was talking with Philip, and I came across this witch hunt narrative, and what really wanted to do a show about this book published by Ross Cheit, Cheit, originally published in 2014, and was reading through it. And really, the full title of the book is The Witch Hunt Narrative: Politics, Psychology, and the Sexual Abuse of Children. So it might be a very heavy topic. So I would recommend not having this running where there are young children in the background.
Right. Definitely.
People are sensitive. So it gets pretty brutal in his book when he goes into McMartin. But I think it's really an important, actually, might be one of the earlier times I've heard the term narrative in the kind of information war or in the propaganda wars or something. So there's really kind of an interesting usage by Ross Cheit, who teaches at Brown. Is that right?
Yes.
Was it present? Thank you. And so anyway, they're going to help me out. You guys go ahead and, maybe you could each go in turn about what interested you in this book and kind of do a general overview of what you took out of it. You want to start, Roberta, or do you want to start, Phil?
I think Phil would be a better place to
start. Sure. That's fine. Well, I started the book as I was finishing Pedogate Primer. And that was in October or November of 2020, right? So just as I'm putting the finishing touches on my book, I start reading this because I'd read some of his blog stuff at brown.edu, And by the way, that's a big deal. This is a literal Ivy League professor. This is not just some guy with a blog. The website at the Recovered Memory Project is at brown.edu. But I started it then, and I finished it, last month. Why? Because in addition to being one of the most important books I have ever read in my life, it is also one of the most harrowing, grueling, and difficult books I've ever read in my life. It's medically graphic in a lot of areas. And unfortunately, that's necessary because, there's so much misinformation and disinformation. I think some of the people didn't know that they were spreading misinformation, and some were doing it on purpose to spread a false narrative. But there's just so much that without knowing, the literally what, the medically graphic details, it's hard to read, but the difficult parts of it is also what makes it important. But yeah, no, my mind was absolutely blown because folks like Debbie Nathan and Snedeker and Pendergrass, by the way, wasn't he also abused or accused of abusing his kids?
Yes,
a lot of these folks who are involved, they have a very vested interest in, no, there's no child abuse going on. And it's like, but weren't you accused of that? Or, like the Eberleys and their child porn magazine Finger, they have vested interest, or the Frieds that started the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. They have a vested interest in convincing people, no, it's all crazy. The kids are lying, or the kids are confused, or, these evil preachers and therapists and cops have confused these kids and made them think things that haven't happened. But in a lot of these cases, even some of the so-called wild, unbelievable details feces and masks and knives and then they found stuff. They found pictures and they found the so a lot of even the wild sounding unbelievable stuff, just because something's unbelievable, I've said this many times, just because something is unbelievable, just because something shouldn't be allowed to happen, that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Things that shouldn't happen every day. But yeah, that's pretty much how I came to it. I'll pass it on over to Roberta.
It's funny because I can't remember exactly why I bought this book. I believe it was because I was just like Philip, reading Ross Cheit's blog And I believe it was because I was interested in capturing the Friedmans and the Friedman case.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of excellent information about that case. Capturing the Friedmans, that documentary left out an entirely other defendant, Ross Goldstein, who pled guilty. So all three of those characters in that, the two that pled guilty and the one that you didn't hear about also pled guilty in that case. So I consider the Witch Hunt narrative the most important true crime book.
Mm-hmm.
It's so rare that you get an author who is willing to do the work and go through all the trial transcripts. And it's very interesting when you read his notes on how he went through the McMartins, which is one of Los Angeles's largest, or California's longest trials. And he said
and most
that
expensive.
I went through most expensive. Yeah, I went through the court documents, but this was missing. I found them in another box over here. So what Ross Cheit is talking about in this book is exactly what I talk about, which is innocence fraud, which is a movement where there was this movement in the 90s to free pedophiles, convicted pedophiles, especially around the daycare cases. And it was aided by journalists who really became attached to this cause. Now they are distancing themselves.
Yep. I noticed that.
Dorothy Rabinowitz, Debbie Nathan. It's the same thing that's going on with the Innocence Project. The same experts run from these cases to the cases like Ofschi is also,
and it's a lucrative industry too.
Right.
Like look at Loftus, $650, $750 per hour. How many professors make that? None.
Well, she said she was going to up her fee to $700 an hour in the Durst trial.
Yeah.
But here comes the Maxwell trial, and I felt stupid because I announced she gets $700 an hour but she testified that she's still at $600 an hour.
Oh, only $650 an hour. Poor thing.
Right.
How will she ever make it?
How is she ever going to make it? And she didn't get totally paid by testifying for Weinstein, I believe.
Really? Oh my gosh, I did not know that.
Yeah, that's what she testified to in the Maxwell trial. But she is someone who really made her bones doing this work in both fields. I say both fields. I don't know if you would consider them fields, but testifying for convicted pedophiles, claiming that all their victims are victims of false memories or having implanted memories, and the same thing in trials that have to do with killers, like the Tim Hennis trial, where she got Tim Hennis freed in his second trial. Because she said that the eyewitnesses were the most terrible eyewitnesses she ever saw, and she totally trashed their testimony and said they couldn't have possibly seen what they'd seen. Now, Tim Hennis got tried a third time militarily.
They had to re-enlist him in the military to do that. They're like, hey, buddy, you're enlisted again. So this is now a military trial, because they couldn't go through the civilian trial because of double jeopardy, which made that a very, controversial move. But yeah, apparently the military was convinced enough that they re-enlisted him just so that he could see justice.
Because DNA came along, and that was very bad for him. So the worst eyewitnesses that Elizabeth Loftus ever saw were dead on. And you should see that sketch for the eyewitness who just saw Hennis at a glance. It is dead on and scary how accurate it is. So but she really believes in this, and I consider, this is my opinion about Loftus, she is on Team Criminal, or she even titled her book Witness for the Defense. She calls these people unpopular topics, but she is out to discredit it all. That killers aren't killers. Everybody's in. I wouldn't say she thinks everyone's innocent, but she's willing to go to bat for a lot of convicted killers or soon to be or or charged people who are charged with murder, and she's also willing to go to bat for people who are charged with these kind of crimes, sexual abuse
And
crimes.
it's some of the most famous too. We're talking Ted Bundy and OJ and Sandusky and Robert Durst from the Jinx documentary and Ghislaine Maxwell and Harvey Weinstein. She was considering Prince Andrew.
And Sandusky. Oh, she was actually.
It
looked like she was. It looked like Prince Andrew was picking up on her narrative, and she wrote a blurb for the back of this book by Mark Pendergrass, who's saying that Sandusky. She also testified for Sandusky is innocent, and that it's all a big hysteria. So
every one of those kids was just confused. Yeah,
confused. And a great thing about
don't you hate it when you think you got raped, but oops, I didn't really get raped like that. I mean, like it happens every other week for me. I'm like, oh, that's right, I didn't get raped. No,
like you would forget that. Give me a break. Yeah,
and this is something I want to bring up. Like I'll get right back to you, Roberta. But like, remember I think it's Peacenik or whatever study, because the Lost in the Mall study is where they're getting a lot of this. And yes, you can convince a grown-up that they were lost in the mall if you have a trusted family member tell you the details, right? But when that trusted family member says, "Hey, you remember that time when you got an anal enema?" For some reason, people don't imagine that they got their orifices penetrated to the same degree, 20% or so. Not a very high degree of people who will be convinced they were lost in a mall when they weren't. But like it's practically nil when it comes to, oh, you remember that time you were uncomfortably penetrated in your orifice? Nobody imagines that. You know, not even with family and friends. And that's the thing when it comes to these rape cases, it's not family and friends usually telling them, you remember this? You know, it's a completely different mechanism. Plus, traumatic memory works different than regular memory. There's just so many reasons why the Lost in the Mall study should not be generalized and applied to sexual abuse cases. Sorry to interrupt those. Go ahead, Roberta.
I was going to just say this exact same thing. And there's also other problems with the Lost in the Mall study. For one, the Lost in the Mall study was done. They enlisted some of their relatives. So the people doing this study.
Exactly, which was an ethical
issue. Using people related to them, which is a problem. And also, it's faced heavy criticism. Many of her studies have, and people. My understanding is that people have had a hard time replicating her findings. So, some of her things are some of her studies are fairly, what I would consider fairly benign or kind of obvious. Like if you use the words about a car crash, how fast was the car going when it smashed into the other car? The way language is used is what it means.
Oh, right.
And if you use the words, how fast was the car going when it hit the other car, use a different kind of language. So if you use sort of much more evocative language like smashed, people are likely to estimate this in her defense, higher.
A lot of that stuff is true. Like I think she's done some valuable work, like especially the stuff that she've done on police interrogations. Yeah, there are ways police can interrogate a person that can almost convince them that they did it. Like if they're already and so there is some valuable work she's done. My biggest gripe, like I said, is the generalization of that research and then applying it to sexual abuse cases where it's not valid in this scenario. This is a different type. Traumatic memory is not regular memory, so they don't work the same. So what's true for regular memory is not going to be true for traumatic memory.
But Elizabeth Loftus has had all sorts of problems. For one, she had to step down from the American Psychological Association.
Because she didn't have to. She accidentally decided to at the same time as there was an APA complaint for ethics. But she didn't hear about that. It's just a coincidence that she stepped down before she heard it. Even though in the Hoffman report about Guantanamo Bay, why would she be in the Hoffman report? The Hoffman report where it says that she was warned to step down, but why believe the government, right?
Right, exactly. She's told many different stories about why she stepped down. She went after, and what's funny about this is that everybody who accuses me of being biased on that side, this is the most biased thing I've ever heard. She saw a study where, can you describe this, Phil? Where basically, can you sum it up better than I can?
Which one?
Where there was a child who she believes was a victim of a false memory, now an adult, and she was in this part of this study. She let herself be filmed as part of the study as a child, accusing her mother of sexually abusing her, and she was determined to find out this child's identity and
that's the Jane Doe case.
Right, the Jane Doe case.
And then
and
she
settled
leaked her
that
name
case civilly and said
that's a bigger ethical violation than the bit with the Lost in the Mall study, which there was Lynn Crook wrote a piece in I forget which journal, but it was a journal related to ethics in psychology or ethics in something. But so there are multiple ethical issues with her work too. In between that and
her
some
behavior,
of the people
this is her behavior. She went out. She basically outed this survivor, and it was terrible. And she settled it. And I would encourage people. I have a clip of it in my False Memory Syndrome Foundation episode, but there's a TED Talk she does where she describes why she had to settle, and boy, does she finesse it.
Interesting. The case is called Taus versus Loftus. It's went to the Supreme Court of California.
That's right.
TAUS.
Yeah, Taus and Lynn Crook are the two big ones when it comes to the ethical issues, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, 2007 she settled for $7,500. But yeah, I mean, she's just one part of this whole network, right?
Right, exactly.
She's just one little piece.
There's the journalist, there's the scientist, and it's not even just psychologists. Ofshe is a sociologist, and once again, like I said, I try and compensate for my biases. I first knew about Ofshe from his work, his brilliant and excellent and important work fighting Scientology. Now, who was his protege at that time fighting Scientology? Oh, a little doctor they called Jolly. Yes, that's right. Louis Jolly and West, who was head of the Cult Awareness Network before, of course, Scientology took them over. And, we talked about a little bit about that in the last one. But yeah, like I said, I try and be fair because, some of these folks have done some important work. And then on the other end, you've got guys like Bennett Brown, who, on the other side of the memory wars, and Bennett Brown, Colin Ross, I've heard some suspicious things about him and him being connected to some of the MK Ultras. You know what I mean? So it's not it's not good guys versus bad guys. There are well-meaning people on both sides, and there are well-meaning people doing bad things on both sides, and there are bad people doing bad things on both sides. And the problem is it's such a divisive topic that anybody who writes about it, except for Cheit, I love the fact that he's so fair. He points out that, yes, there were issues with the way some of the McMartin kids were interviewed. And yes, there were issues with this. And yes, there were issues with that. But even when you take that into account, there are major disparities between the witch hunt narrative and what really went on.
Good point. Just before we continue, lest we forget, Richard Ofshe testified for the defense in the West Memphis 3 trial, too.
That's right.
I forgot that.
And a big supporter of Marty Tankliff's too.
Oh, jeez.
So they all come.
They all keep popping up.
About Ross Cheit, just personally for me, is I found everybody everybody I know who gets into the discipline of reading court transcripts, it changes their politics. I think it's a kind of
good point.
A muscle in your brain that gets very developed. I don't know what, a very kind of critical muscle and
absolutely,
that gets developed. And Ross Cheit is, I would have to ask him, but I assume that he has the same politics he has that he went into this book. Everybody else I know who has this sort of experience of going into reading court transcripts and finding out that they aren't what they seemed. I mean, this book just blew my mind when I found out that McMartin's wasn't the way it was presented, and the Friedman case. My mind was blown,
And it was
and
20
I
years
never
ago.
trusted our press the same
Yeah.
way. So,
Or well, he spent nearly 20 years.
Yes.
The genesis of the Recovered Memory Project is 1995. The Frieds were involved in the Divided Memories episode on Frontline, and which had the line about how there are no corroborated cases of recovered memory ever. And then he just writes a letter to, hey, well, here's 15. And that's where it started in 1995, and then spent 15 years. It wasn't even just him. He had a whole research team, spent 15 years. It's such a massive.
This is Cheit, right?
Mind-blowing.
Chase did.
Yeah.
He called it
he
extreme.
and
Philip, he called it extreme research and had 80 research assistants.
Exactly. 80
so
people
huge.
working for 15 years. Can you imagine? That's incredible.
Right. I mean, it's really something else. And I think that I think he even states that he couldn't get all the documents. So from what he always kind of qualifies his statements. This is what I was able to get. This is what it said. Right.
Mm-hmm. And that is absolutely the biggest challenge in doing this kind of work.
Right.
Is
I tried to
finding
go.
all
I
the
tried.
documents.
I tried to get the McMartin documents. I've already kind of tried to do that, and I need to get a court order. So it's really hard. You got to go through the steps to get it. So it's not easy. And then that's even if I got a court order to get the documents, then I got to worry about photocopying.
Yeah, then you have to go over there, right? You have to physically go to the
I got to go do that. I got to go
right.
I got to go file something over in downtown LA. I mean, the documents are there.
It's insane how difficult and sometimes prohibitively expensive getting information that is in the public interest can be. We're talking information that is in the public interest. Oh, I'm sorry. One of the cases I'm working on, the hitchhiker thing. Oh, would you like the trial transcript? That'll be $38,000, sir. What? Are you kidding
didn't
me?
The public already pay for that?
No, that is literally exactly what my taxes for. Exactly.
There has to be a better system to. Yeah, there has to be a better system for.
at least do
documents.
FOIA, where if you're a journalist or whatever, you can at least apply for a waiver. But there are no waivers. I think Pacer has some kind of program you can sign up for. I'm not sure exactly how that works. I'm gonna try it though because I do need more Pacer in my life.
Well, you can actually, it's very selective. You can get some of these recent Giuffre documents off of a website. It's not Pacer. You can get it for free. You can download PDFs of it. So you just have to find the right website. But these
recently discovered disciplinary review board lookups are also free. And there's stuff you can find in there that is not in the media, that is not in the, it's nowhere else. I recently ran across a case, this is for over 30 years, all these people who passed the bar in New Jersey. We're not talking rando lawyers. I'm talking about assemblymen, assistant attorney general, politicians and judges and prosecutors. What do they have in common? Oh, sex crimes with children, getting sentenced to probation and therapy, and then a 6-month suspension. And none of that ended up in the newspaper. None of that ended up in Pacer.
Nothing.
I don't know about that now. You know what I mean? But yeah, disciplinary review board lookups, also free, at least in the state of New Jersey. I'm not sure how that applies state to state, but yeah, I found some. I think
they're free in California. You just have to find the right spot in California. But just to give you an idea how important these court documents are, if I had not had access to what the guy did, I forgot his name, in Arkansas, who put all of those court documents onto Callahan, my position on the West Memphis 3 would have been totally different. And I think that's what's allowed this witch hunt narrative to fester. Maybe the tide is turning, like Roberta said, but it's because these aren't out in the public domain, because there's so much more in the West Memphis 3 documents than was covered by anybody, whether it was Mara Leverett or any newscaster, because there was all kinds of stuff that didn't make it into the trial. The very important, I think, that it was salient, that gives you a much better idea. The statements of Eccles when he was first interviewed, just all the weird stuff that was going on there. I mean, what was that one guy? There's incredible things that never made it to trial. But so looking at the McMartin case files would just be invaluable. I mean, I wish they were made public. So anyway, he had to do a lot of work. Cheit had to do a lot of work to get all this stuff together. I mean, I would love to get his documents on, in the public domain somewhere.
I'd say one of the most impressive pieces of scholarship in the past 50 years, easily. Just the sheer scope of work that had to be done, Yeah.
And look how it was, and look how you would have thought that a book debunking a myth, an American myth, would have blown up the American media. And I think there was a small review in the New York Times, maybe. It caused a little bit pushback from the Center for Reason and Justice, which is ideologically aligned with the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, which has now closed its doors.
A lot of the same members.
Mm-hmm. And I was telling William before we started, before we went live, recording live. What are we doing? Before we went live, that really the witch hunt narrative is about the journalists. Yeah. And without the journalists, this myth could not be cemented. Right. That all these daycare cases, and he goes through a handful of them. So it's not just McMartin's. He goes through the Kelly Michaels case, the Country Walk daycare case with Frank Fuster, and the Friedman case, many others. So without the journalists, this could not have happened.
One interesting thing I like, one myth he explodes. A lot of the people go, well, how come there's never been a case since? And then he's like, okay, here's a dozen cases where multiple kids were abused in daycares, and sometimes there were multiple abusers, and it's just because it didn't make news anymore. Mm-hmm. They just stopped covering they didn't get national coverage anymore. They got local coverage. So it's not that it stopped happening; it's that it stopped getting national coverage. If a tree falls in the forest, it still falls, whether anybody heard it or not. I don't know if it makes a sound. Well, I just know that it still falls.
Well, some of these cases, and I was really disappointed that Ross Cheit never really looked into the case in San Antonio, Texas, with the 6 women. I think they were called. They did a documentary. And
Nathan helped them get released just a few years ago.
Right.
Really? Wow.
So these were lesbians who had been accused of these kinds of sexual abuse,
and sadistic.
One adult survivor recanted, and the other didn't. So I look at recantations just the way the court does. I view them with suspicion, and because if it was a sort of both of them, then I would kind of scratch my head a little bit more. But I haven't looked into that. It may be a case of false conviction. I don't know, but
many survivors of abuse don't want to believe it and convince themselves it's not true for years. I think that's one of the mechanisms behind, I don't know if recovered memory is the right word, because that's so loaded and people think of you go to a therapist, you have hypnosis, and no, I don't think it always works that way. But I believe a lot of people who are abused, they try and convince themselves it's not true, or that it was it was my imagination. It's, sorry, go ahead.
Ross Cheit is an example of he had a recovered memory of his camp counselor abusing him, and he successfully sued that camp counselor and with other victims, is my understanding. I hope I'm
he mentions that in the intro. He mentions that in the intro to the book.
So And he has the Recovered Memory Project. This is a tenured Brown professor. I mean, you would have just thought this book would have exploded.
Yeah, exactly. This is an Ivy League guy with as credentialed as you. I mean, like in America, I'm an Ivy League tenured professor is about as, like as far as your bona fides, what's above that, But no, you're right. Have you seen the reviews of the book, by the way? 90% or like 75, 80% are 5-star reviews. And then all the 1-star reviews are like sex researchers, like, I'm a professor of sexology. And I don't like the way and then they start talking about some stuff. And I'm like, you didn't read the book. You're talking about something that he already, we went through that. And that's another thing. I've done this online, arguing with people. And then I'm like, Debbie Nathan said, and I sent him the Debbie Nathan tag from the Recovered Memory Project. And he's like, well, so you're saying that. And I'm like, dude, I just sent you the link. You obviously didn't read it, or you wouldn't be putting words in my mouth. You're attacking a straw man. I've offered you the evidence. I've shown you, just take 10 minutes and read this, and you'll see 18 ways that Debbie Nathan was wrong. Or you could keep arguing with me without reading it. And now we're wasting each other's time, I think the biggest part of the people who have an issue with the book are people who assume they know what it's about and attack it without having even read it. I'm fairly certain that's the case.
Yeah, I believe it. Cheit has a double doctorate from Berkeley, so he's got a doctor in public policy plus a law degree, right? So it's not a joke, from like one of the top 5 law.
I think one of the reasons that this was able to cement so well is, I think what Philip said is right, that these claims do sound fantastic. Yeah. For example, one of the things that Friedman said is, well, how could this abuse go on in front of everybody with nobody saying anything? And why? Well, no, it didn't. That wasn't the claim. So what they do is they straw man. They basically
attack
make a claim that nobody made. So another thing is, in the Kelly Michaels case, they claimed that she couldn't have made this damage with a knife. So the kid said that
because it was a plastic. It was plastic cutlery. The kid said it was plastic. The kid said it was plastic use,
and it was the handle, not the blade. So there's another one.
Debbie Nathan was claiming that. I know there might have been others, Snedeker and the whatnot of the lot. But I know Debbie Nathan. By the way, I've emailed Debbie Nathan, asked her her position on the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. I was trying to get. I've emailed a bunch of these people. By the way, Dr. Maggie Bruck and who is the one she worked with? I'm blanking on the name now. Cece. Brooke and Cece have not read the witch hunt narrative. Wow. That's what they told me anyway. I'm sure that if a 580-page book absolutely ripping my research to shreds were published, I wouldn't read it either. Right.
Well, the thing is, Cheit mentions they're in the top 3 of the major works of the witch hunt narrative. It's their book titled Jeopardy.
Oh, that's another thing. When it comes to if you mention False Memory Syndrome Foundation, they are all very well. I was never affiliated with that group. Oh, really? Why are you saying this now? Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't it funny? And Debbie Nathan has remade herself as a border expert.
Exactly. That's what she told me. She's like, well, I don't cover that anymore. And I was never part of the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. And now all my journalism is about, the border. And I'm like, okay, sometimes no comment is the most telling thing a person can say. Hey, I got a quote for y'all. This is interesting. I recently, like when the iNews story came out about where Loftus was almost sounded like she was saying, hey, Andy, do you need, she was basically saying that she would consider, joining Andrew's defense team. Or as I put it in the email to her, the Andrew formerly known as Prince, which I cannot claim that is the Prince Pervert podcast, and the Sun and multiple other news outlets are always stealing their stuff without giving credit. I steal their stuff too, but at least I give credit. But I'm like, so I heard you might be defending the Andrew formerly known as Prince, blah, 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 and asked her about legacy issues. Because I really feel like it's like, hey, Dr. Loftus, do you have any loved ones? with reason that aren't afraid to talk to you plainly. Like, I can't say this. I didn't say this, obviously. I did my best to find like a way to bring it up. And in her answer, I have briefly thought about the legacy issues, ellipsis points, and certainly hate all the hate mail that has come my way because of these unpopular defendants. But I've decided this is a price I have to pay to do what I believe in. I'm sorry. I need a minute. Oh my God. The price is $650 an hour, though, right?
Right.
Sorry.
Wow. So it was CC and Brooks was Jeopardy in the Courtroom. So he mentions the top 3 books are Satan's Silence, Ritual Abuse and the Making of American Witch Hunt, Jeopardy in the Courtroom, and then also the Abbey Man made for TV movie Indictment, right? So those are the 3.
Which was Oliver Stone, right? Was that the Oliver Stone with James Wood?
Correct.
Yeah. And I've seen both of those. The Muffin Man, like, do you know the Muffin Man, which was the, like, I'll admit the Oliver Stone movie is a much better movie, but I mean, it's completely wrong, but it is a far better made movie for what it's worth. That's another thing about like the false memory lobby. They were sophisticated. They had connections. I've got, some of the documents I got from the West Special Archives. There's an article in like Philadelphia Magazine or something, and it comes with the cover letter, which is like, Dear Pamela Fried, the head of the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. Dear Pamela, thank you so much for your help, and you were indispensable, and I'm sure this was hard for you. No, it was hard for Jennifer, her daughter, the renowned Guggenheim Fellowship award-winning memory researcher, who we're expected to believe that the Guggenheim and other award-winning memory researcher, her memory is fallible, but not the blackout drunk who married his stepsister. Peter Fried was a blackout drunk at the time the abuse was said to have occurred. He went to rehab eventually and got dried up. But during the time that the abuse supposedly happened, he was a blackout drunk. But we're supposed to believe his memory over the memory of a world-renowned memory researcher who, I think sometimes good things come out of bad things. She's where we get Darvo. The gaslighter's best friend, the protocol for these people: deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. We see that over and over again in these cases. Virginia Giuffre, you mentioned. Like, I couldn't believe that the Ghislaine Maxwell defense was basically, okay, well, no, actually they're just liars, and they're greedy, and besides, one of them did drugs, like the same thing with the Showtime docuseries Buried about Eileen Franklin. That was one of the things they did. Oh, look, she used cocaine and prostituted herself. And I'm like, yeah, that does sound like something that somebody who went from an honor student to that does sound like abuse might be a cause for something like that. Because normally somebody in a upper middle class household doesn't just end up like smoking crack and prostituting themselves to strangers. Usually there's some kind of abuse, something that happened, and whether or not George Franklin committed murder, I don't believe he did. But yes, he absolutely, certainly, they found child pornography at his place. I do believe that he abused, his daughter, Eileen. I think that might have been an actual case of false memories. I do believe there are cases of false memories. And yes, our memory is fallible. I don't think that Eileen was like, as some people claim, was just trying to get back at him for her abuse. I think like she genuinely, believed it.
I think there's one little subtle difference though in the Maxwell. What they were saying, the defense was saying in the Maxwell trial, was that not that they were all lying, but it's the same narrative as the witch hunt narrative. In the SA cases of the 80s and 90s that we're talking about, those memories were corrupted or implanted by therapists. In the case of the Maxwell victims, now the lawyers, the civil lawyers, are
Yeah.
implanting the false memories. So it was just a clever way to try to avoid victim
That's a chicken
blaming.
or the egg
So
situation,
right,
isn't it?
you're right.
How did they
So,
go to the
Philip, they did
lawyer
say,
and then the lawyer implanted the memories? Didn't they go to the lawyer
because they
first about
wanted
the
civil
memories?
money. They wanted right, exactly. They wanted
Right, right.
civil money. I
And
don't know.
Maria
It doesn't really
Farmer,
make sense.
Maria Farmer in 1995 was having false memories about something that happened last week. Wow, that stuff happens quick, doesn't it?
It's amazing.
You know?
And she's writing in her diary. It all fell apart. It was not a good defense, but it was, they were desperate. It was a pretty good
It
case
feels like
against
they were
her.
trying to
It was a
throw the
close
case.
case. It was a close case. Oh, they weren't trying to throw it. They were slick, that defense.
Well,
Oh, you mean
I mean
DA? The government?
The prosecutor, I mean. It felt like
No,
the
they were
prosecutor,
just,
because they didn't push them on a lot of things. Like the one thing that really sticks out when they talk about the pilot, and then the pilot installed some cameras in the. Wait a minute, hold on. Why is your pilot installing hidden cameras? Because that's not what, like, jet pilots usually, private jet pilots, are they also handymen usually? Like, don't you
did they
get
say
another guy to
cameras?
do
I
that?
know they said audio equipment and video
Or was it
equipment, but I
okay?
don't know if
Right.
they, yeah,
But
yeah.
install
They were,
some kind of
they were kind of
recording
vague about
equipment.
it. Right.
If
I had the
I
same
was a
thought,
prosecutor,
right.
I'd be like, okay, hold on. Let's talk about that for a minute. Why was there
Right.
recording equipment being installed by a pilot? Why
But
don't
do
you
you see
just
the
hire?
frustration though? Do you see the frustration? As a researcher, you want to know, but
Right, right.
as a DA trying the case, it's not essential to find those things out to
I
get a
guess you're right.
conviction. And I
I guess
think
you're
that's
right.
where a lot of
And you
the
don't want to
frustration
overload
comes
with too much info, because that could
with
confuse a jury, I guess. Yeah,
with
yeah.
Epstein researchers, and same thing. I had the same frustration with the Nexium case. You want everything to come out. It's just not going to. And they were just more inexperienced prosecutors. And Audrey Strauss, who was going to try the case, quit 2 months before it was going to trial. So
Has
what was
anybody
left
filled
is
her position?
there's that one guy. He's got an odd name. It's like Binge. It's like short. Who's the DA now? But that office has been in disarray since her since she left.
Right. The predecessor left too, right?
Yeah, it's who is the DA? It's like
Jeffrey Berman.
it's an African American
Oh, the
gentleman.
new guy's Damian
Yeah.
Williams.
No. Oh, really?
Yeah,
Then who's the one I'm thinking of? That's like, maybe that's Brooklyn. I'm thinking of. Okay. Anyway,
they got a new guy. When was he installed? I don't know. It's like September 30th, 2021.
Alvin Bragg is who I'm starting to think of.
Alvin Bragg.
He just got put in.
Yeah, I mean,
an election.
I think just like when they start off with McMartin, he slowly goes through all of the evidence, right? And I think it's super compelling because he's just showing that these people they wasn't even published when the investigation was happening, right? So like I think it didn't break until 1984, but the police were doing all these interviews. So it wasn't, like the original was Judy Johnson was the original one and they took him to UCLA, right? They took one of the Matthew Johnson, the son who was supposedly originally abused. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah. She took her child to the doctor. That's the thing that's so alarming, is the amount of evidence that's from parents who took their kids to the doctor to be examined in McMartin's. I think there were 5 children who used in that case, that kind of physical evidence of abuse. So it started out, she's seen Judy Johnson now as a hysteric. Sometimes you'll read things that she's schizophrenic.
An alcoholic, a psychotic.
Schizophrenic, alcoholic.
After all those years of being gaslit, I'd probably be on the sauce and start sounding nuts to people who would, who didn't know the whole story too. Because
Right, but
imagine.
She took her kid because her kid was bleeding rectally. So that was the beginning of McMartin's. Whatever you want to say about McMartin's, it did not start with hysteria. It started with a good
medical evidence of
doing what
child
any
abuse.
good mother would do, which is bring her child to the doctor to be examined.
At UCLA, no less.
Something
like
so alarming. Yes.
Yeah, they had to go to UCLA. I mean, they go to like the best or one of the best hospitals around here. But yeah, I mean, and they're very convenient. The witch hunt narrative types are very convenient, calling her an alcoholic and making sure that applies to when the first.
And Nathan has literally used the word psychotic. Wow. Literally. And it's like, where's your evidence for that again? I haven't seen any medical evidence of her, quote, psychosis. Mrs. Journalist, Mrs. Esteemed award-winning journalist. I would like to see your citation, please, because it doesn't exist. There is no medical evidence of her being psychotic. And if she did seem unhinged by the end of the trial, it's probably, like I said, years of gaslighting will do things to you. Also, just the fact that she died just before she was supposed to testify. Paul Bynum also died the day before. I'll never forget that. Well, I've got some stuff to say, and neither side's going to like it. Well, we don't know what he had to say because he died the day before he was supposed to testify. Which, two witnesses dying the day before they're supposed to testify, I don't know, kind of reminds me of how the camera in Brunel's cell also didn't work, and how he also had attempted suicide multiple times. It's weird how sometimes there's strange coincidences like that. And, I don't want to, go all conspiracy theory, but yeah, it does make me wonder.
Right. I think there were 3 people. There were one more person who died mysteriously. One was a cop, right? But was that the cop?
Bynum was the cop. Yeah.
I thought there was
and he was also involved in the class, poly class case. And there was another like high profile case he was involved in. Yeah. So he wasn't just a cop either. He was a, top cop. They fired him. They put him on like either administrative leave or something like that because their claim was he was starting to be paranoid. But after he found files, police records in Raymond Bucky's house, I'd start wondering too. I'd start probably sounding paranoid too. If like, hey, why is the defendant got police records in his house? Now, what did those police records say? I don't know. They disappeared about the time that Bynum was I almost said killed. He committed suicide, right?
Right.
Yeah, just like Gary Webb, just like Danny Casolaro. And Gary Caradori from the Franklin scandal bit, I'm sure he just, he saw so much that he decided to put a bomb in his plane. Now, as for what happened to the briefcase, I don't know. I don't know why we found the wreckage of the plane, but not the briefcase with the files he told his family that he was afraid he would be killed over. Who knows? So, but the
other thing we're not talking about is Ralph Underwager and what the point of pushing
literal proud pedophile.
So he had to step down from the False Memory Syndrome Foundation because he was quoted as saying that pedophiles need to become a more positive part of our society and that pedophilia is an acceptable expression of God's love. Yeah. So even that was too much for the False Memory Syndrome.
And even something about human touch.
Wait, hold on. So why was this pushed? What was the benefit of pushing this kind of narrative? Why is Oprah Winfrey having Kelly Michaels on and pushing this? Why did the PBS always with the documentaries in Innocence Fraud? You always have to start out with indoctrinate the public with a bunch of documentaries. Why did the PBS have not one but 2 documentaries pushing this narrative? Maybe 3, at least 2. The 2 are the ones I'm thinking of. So what, and capturing the Freedmen. So what is the point of this? What do you guys think is the benefit of having this myth?
I think it's helpful because it's a smokescreen for one. Like, it makes it a lot easier to discount this information. Like I said, it was very, very sophisticated means that the false memory lobby used. It's like, okay, they affected the way laws were made. They affected the way therapists had to do their therapy. They affected public opinion through, like you said, documentaries, fictionalized adaptations like the Oliver Stone movie. They were incredibly effective. Like I said, I've been talking to Loftus and some of these other people, corresponding with them. And Loftus, by the way, very much did not like my use of the term false memory lobby. She said, what was it? Would you call some people who come together to raise awareness about pancreas cancer a lobby? And I'm like, well, if they go to the news and legislators in order to get things changed and change public opinion, yes, I would call them a lobby. A lobby is not necessarily a bad thing. When you lobby the government and lobby speaking of Underweger and lobbies, I think he was one of the founding members of Victims of Child Abuse. Oh, excuse me. Victims of Child Abuse Laws. Wait a minute. Yeah. Are you kidding me? Victims of Child Abuse Laws? They were trying to change the law in Florida where mandatory reporting in some cases would not be a thing anymore. You go to your therapist or your priest or whatever and you talk about, well, so-and-so raped me. Okay, well, you're a kid and I don't have to say anything about that so that can keep on happening.
Right. But what's interesting is that Elizabeth Loftus calls this an unpopular position, but it's still okay. You saw all the people who came out, all the celebrities who came out to support a killer, an unrepentant psychopathic killer like Julius Jones, James Corbin. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, it's the list as long as my arm. So why is it okay? Why is it not okay to support pedophilia anymore, but it's okay to support killers and sometimes killer rapists like Rodney Reed, who's a serial rapist and a rapist of children. So it seems like it's okay to support killers and want to get them out of prison, but not pedophiles, no matter how innocent you claim they are.
It's a good point. I think that guy, the other guy that got out who was on Joe Rogan's show, he was from Louisiana. Do you remember that guy's name? Because they had the murder charge overturned, but they were still dealing with the rape conviction. What was his name?
Oh, I know. It's
another black
it's right on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, we talked
sorry.
about it last time. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys.
But it is interesting how that has changed. I mean, now you don't see celebrities going, saying the pedophiles were unjustly convicted. But it is, there's so much stuff going on. Oh, my God.
Robert Jones. I'm sorry.
Robert Jones, yeah. So they got him, they overturned the murder conviction, but he still has a conviction for rape. They never mentioned
talking
that.
to a rapist. I mean, these are not subtle cases. I mean, these are not like close cases. They seem to pick the best case they picked in a while is Glossop. But even if you know anything about that doesn't make any sense the way they're pushing it. So it's just bizarre to me. I really hoped you guys would have a great answer to why, because now the Innocence Project is pretending that they don't. I heard a pretending they don't know Elizabeth Loftus. I heard a podcast with Bruce Barquette, who's Marty Tankliff's lawyer, and
what's the guy that's starting the Innocence Project and worked on the OJ trial? That's where they first looked. Yeah, that's where they first hooked up, right? Yeah. So now it's like, Elizabeth who? Yeah,
right. They were like, Elizabeth Loftus came up.
That's what I was trying to warn her about, by the way.
And she's on the Innocence Project website. I mean, she's the Innocence Project's one of their favorite experts. She's made a video for the Innocence Project talking about eyewitness identification. Basically, they have all their bases covered. If it's an eyewitness, not reliable. If it's a confession, not reliable, false confession. If it's DNA evidence, it's been contaminated, not reliable, or if it's DNA evidence that they've tested, it comes back with their client. They continue on with their client and they just pretend it doesn't exist. So, I mean, whatever the strongest piece of evidence is, it somehow all junk science or not reliable.
So true. It's really incredible. I mean, don't you think it's an industry in that they're really just gaming the system for money?
It's a lobby and it's an industry, which is ironic because that's what they accused the so-called recovered memory therapists of doing, especially Ofshe. He was relentless. You know, he believed that it was all a money game. Now that said, I don't think that that's completely true for either side, but absolutely it became a cottage, like the recovered memory therapist trying to upsell. I think there were cases of that. And on the other side with, no, everybody's memory is false. If you got raped, you didn't, that became a little cottage industry too, but not all of them were just in it for the money on either side. I don't believe that. I believe there are cases on both sides, though, where that is absolutely the case.
Well, think about it. If you're a journalist, that's a great story. I've been falsely accused of abusing my daughter. I've been falsely accused of abusing my daycare students. Look at me.
You mentioned witness against the defense.
Yeah,
it'll tug at your heartstrings reading that book, even if you come at it with the preconceived biases that I had when I started reading it. It still tugs at your heartstrings a little bit, but at the same time, it's so odd that a research scientist would publish this book, which is just anecdotal. That's all it is. It's purely anecdotal. Everybody knows, though, that the highest form of evidence is 10 anecdotes, right? That's how you prove things. You come up with 10 anecdotes. Well, this guy said, and this guy said, so it must be true. That's another thing that really amazes me is how that and the fact that there aren't even that many anecdotes. And Loftus had like the entirety of the false memory syndrome. Everybody, the thousands of people probably went there. And there were only a dozen or a couple or a few dozen cases out of those thousands that were worth retelling. That tells me that there were a lot of weak cases. Here's another thing that Prof. Cheit points out in his on the Recovered Memory Project website at Brown. They claim that or Pamela Fried claims that they never said anything about we want to make sure that everybody, that we don't attract pedophiles who are just trying to. That was in their very first newsletter, which, by the way, is not listed when you go to the FMSF site where they have all the newsletters. Nope, they have all but that first one. But Brown, at brown.edu, there is a copy of that first newsletter, and it does very much so pretty much claim that, okay, so we want to be careful because this group may attract some pedophiles, and we want to make sure that, well, why would they hide that,
There is one father character in this named Chuck Noah, who's passed on now, who's a father accused by one of his daughters of abuse. And he went around harassing, this father went around with giant signs, in my opinion, protested way too much. Went around with signs on his car saying father falsely accused by his daughter, and went out in front of the therapist's house and
even if that
protested.
works, though, for me, I would not do that. No, thank you.
I mean, just his reaction. They interview him with his daughters, and they all look terrified of him. It's just an interesting thing. But thank God for Ross Cheit. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right.
Oh, it's
probably
Cheit,
not.
by the way. I only know that because in interview with Dr. Loftus, I was saying Cheit, and she's like Cheit, which is one of the second most embarrassing interview moments in my life. The first being, oh, wait, it's Yates, not Yeats.
Right.
I'm talking to an artist, and well, W.B. Yeats up there. It's Yates.
So it's, say it one more time.
Cheit. Yeah, Cheit. Yeah.
Well, once you do pronounce something wrong, you're really, or at least I am doomed. So, for saving this information, because I was just looking for the DA Rice's report on Jesse Friedman, and the only
Mhm.
place it was left, it was up everywhere in 2013 when it came out, but now the only place that it's left, the full report, not up anymore on the DA's website, is
Hmm.
the Brown Recovered Memory
Wow.
blog. So thank
Thank
you for
goodness.
keeping all this stuff.
Exactly.
So
They
also
tried to
on
memory hole
YouTube,
that.
there's a lot of great videos that he's done, or just clips from the time, and they're so obviously from the TV and VHS because they're really scratchy and yeah. But it's great that he's kept all this stuff because without it, we'd really be at a loss to even know where to start researching.
I'm wondering if it's him that uploaded, because on YouTube you can see the Australian 60 Minutes program, Mr. Bubbles, about the Mr. Bubbles, that's what they called it, the Mr. Bubbles case, where this guy and his wife was once again a daycare center, and the kids were saying that they were abused in a bubble bath, and it turned out they were, and Underweger helped the guilty party get free, and then 60 Minutes Australia confronted him at his home, and they got him cussing them out.
He tells them to leave.
Oh,
yeah,
wow. Yeah. It's so
that's
I'm
an
not sure
incredible thing.
if Cheit uploaded that or who did, but
No,
oh man,
not
it's worth
someone
seeing.
else. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wow. There's a lot. I mean, it's crazy. There's a lot of cases, a lot more. Discredit the witch hunt narrative. No question. I think he effectively proves that. And the silence from, the people who put it out, I think is really telling. Like they can't dispute it. They can't contradict it. I mean, just like you said, Robert, it's just not out there. There just isn't that resounding response that, discredits this book at all.
There should have been. And do you think there is any credible claim of an actual witch hunt? It doesn't have to be about the subject.
There was one, I think that might not have been in this book, but wasn't there one that was claimed in, I think it was in Washington or Oregon, where there was a claim of satanic abuse with involved sexual abuse? I don't remember that case.
I know the Kellers. There's the Keller case, Fran Keller, and what was her husband's name? Philip, was it Stan? Fran.
Yeah, I think so because it rhymed. Yeah.
And
or
they
maybe
were
Dan,
trying
yeah,
to escape to Mexico.
Yeah,
they had a third,
which is what every innocent person does. Yeah.
They had a third person who pled out, I believe. Help me if I'm wrong on that. But anyway, they just got themselves out, rewrote it, said Satanism was claimed, which it was never claimed. It was never part of the case at all. It was all
that became a get out of jail free
that
card,
got them.
Pretty much.
They got out of prison. They successfully sued Texas for their wrongful conviction to the tune of $1 million+ dollars. So this is not, I mean, you can see
not just get out of jail free, but get paid.
This is not just murderers getting out and suing the state and abuse and committing what I consider innocence fraud. It's also cases like the Kellers, where there is plenty of evidence, and they should have never, in my opinion, never vacated that conviction. If either one of them.
That's the one that I think I remember. Where was that? Was it in
Was
Vancouver?
that the one you were talking about?
Fran's Daycare, was that it?
I think so. So, by the way, I just found my emails from Cece and Brooke, by the way, asking them what they thought about the witch hunt narrative. Dr. Cece, hi, sorry, but I haven't read Ross Cheit's witch hunt narrative. Yeah. Okay. Tell me another one. My colleague Maggie Bruck may have read it once. Not sure. He gives me her email. In the 25 years since APA attempted to reconcile the two sides in the memory wars, I've shifted my research to issues unrelated to memory. This is the best part. I have only a spotty recollection. I mean, the irony, right, of the various positions that led to the memory wars. Maybe Peter Ornstein at UNC, blah, 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 blah. I haven't kept up. And then I contacted Dr. Bruck. Ornstein didn't respond. Dr. Bruck says, sorry, the best scholars are those who have done research with adults in false memories. I am sure you know the list of characters. One you may have missed is Henry Otgar. Wait a minute. So you're saying you're not an expert? Because 20 years ago, you said that you and Dr. Cece were the foremost experts. What happened in 20 years besides Me Too?
Right, exactly.
Besides victim blaming going out of fashion, what changed, Dr. Cece and Brooke? You know, I really want to know.
Wow. I mean, conveniently moved forward, pivoted to a new topic, right? Like, oh, I'm out of here.
My favorite part, though, is the about I have a spotty recollection of that. Just the irony of that right there.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Oh, wow. I'm just looking at this Keller case, and Jordan Smith, who's trying to get, she's a journalist, trying to get Richard Gloss was writing flattering pieces to the Kellers. It's unbelievable. I mean, there's so many connections from case to case to case. It's like, isn't it amazing, William Ramsey, the same experts we're talking about from case to case to case?
It's incredible. It's incredible. I think he mentioned something about have you heard of the National Center for Reason and Justice?
NCRNJ. Yes. That's one of the worst offenders still running, I would say. Yes, absolutely.
So
they're just still trying to get pedophiles out. They still exist. So the False Memory Syndrome Foundation closed, but the Center for Reason and Justice, I mean, they're trying to get out a pedophile priest.
The worst of the worst. Yeah. Have you seen the NCRNJ?
I mean, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, they do not care that their position is unpopular. They continue on and morally repulsive, in my opinion, but they continue on.
I agree.
Have you seen what they said about the book, by the way? Because and it's once again, it's attacking a straw man. They use not one single detail about why it's wrong. They just say, well, it has all the classic benchmarks of a witch hunt itself. Okay. Wow. Show me the benchmarks. Tell me the page numbers. Do you have direct evidence? Did you even read the book? You know, I mean, I get it. You were blasted in it, and I would say rightly so. But if you want to defend yourself, we use evidence here. You know, you don't just say that's wrong. You say that's wrong because evidence point 1, citation 2, document 3. You don't just make claims and expect people to believe it. I don't anyway. I try not to.
Right. And I think like this kind of whole thing that he's recollecting was really the attack on the legitimacy of child statements, right? Like, I think that's something that theme that he brought up. And he kind of counters that by saying a lot of times these guys testified when they weren't kids anymore, right? So that's also kind of part of the narrative.
And what's sad and scary is that people still, like, that seeped into the public consciousness to the point where all these falsehoods have become accepted common knowledge in the mainstream. People still believe that kids can't be believed. In cases, you know, done immense damage.
Right.
Continues to do.
They're being manipulated by the people interviewing them, right? The CII, for example.
I'm sorry.
Putting those in.
It's just a correction. It's Dan and Fran Keller.
Oh, I knew that it was.
I knew I was wrong.
That it rhymed, but I couldn't remember.
Yeah. My apologies. So this is that's a great point. He goes through exactly what the children said, what they meant, and how also he goes through a lot about how these journalists would take a little detail and change it or make it larger, or I think there's one time when I think he's talking about some kind of dolphins or fish, and it's like a stuffed animal or something.
Right.
It's like it sounds so fantastical, but there's like a little detail that gets changed.
And he talks about, what was the other thing? It was the acronym CAAS, the Child Abuse Accommodation Syndrome, which is contested by the witch hunt narrative, that the kids are, the eventual disclosure doesn't come right away, right?
Yes.
They're accommodating these things due to, different influences, which are like secrecy and help. They're kids, right? They're helplessness. People want
Kids,
to be
and
fun.
especially with boys, there's a lot of shame.
because it's a whole different issue for guys. I mean, like for any survivor of abuse, it's difficult to tell people, but especially because of the way society is, men aren't supposed to show their feelings, men aren't supposed to be vulnerable, and especially, like this is something that makes me sick. Like, how many times have you seen where, oh, look, it's an attractive teacher in her 20s or 30s and a 12 to 15-year-old boy, and all the attaboys and, wow, I wish she was my teacher. Like, you just don't know. Like that, I've seen interviews with some of these kids, with some of these boys when they grew up. They don't feel lucky, that screws with your head, It's but yeah, there's definitely a different way boys and girls are viewed when it comes to sexual abuse, and it's a crying shame because it happens. According to the numbers, it happens more often with females, but once again, that's going by reported numbers. I think that it's probably a lot closer than the statistics show, because more boys and men are reluctant to speak up about it. Oh, my masculinity is in danger,
Right. Isn't that the foundation of like all of the Catholic sex abuse? I mean, that on the boys is there's never
it probably went on for hundreds of years. Yeah,
forever. You don't want to talk about systematic, industrial scale abuse. The Catholic Church
and the cover up. Every time the cover up and the shuffling around was as bad as the crime, because it led to more crimes. So I don't care if you were the rapist or the bishop that moved the rapist. You were equally deserving to burn
accessory
in hell.
to the crime.
Yeah.
That was the guy who became Pope. That was part of his job, like before he became Pope.
He just recently, that was just like a month or two ago, was it, that he came out about that? He's like, oh yeah, I used to be the rapist shuffler,
Yeah, there was a different definite shuffler. It was, I forgot the office in the Catholic Church, but man, I don't talk about it. I mean, yeah, it's called, that couples in the sexual abuse with religious abuse, so but you get both at the same time. You don't just get the sexual abuse, but that's a whole nother story. Is there anything you guys want to add? I feel like, I just think this book stands alone. There's just so much research. Even the main cases, he adds in all these smaller cases that don't fit into the witch hunt narrative. You can go through some of those cases I haven't even listed, but it's like there's another case here. There's another guy here in Reno. There's another guy here. So
you see issues with the reporting and issues with the trial, and it feels like a rubric almost, or is that just me? I mean, like, what do you guys think? It almost feels like, there was a protocol, because so many of these worked out the same way. They used the same, even when the argument didn't really fit this case, they would slap that at it, and the journalists and the court officials and the scientific experts would all say the same thing, and then everybody, and it just happened over and over and over again.
Such a good point,
for
man.
years.
Great point, man. Really
and then they use those numbers to say, "Oh, look how many people are falsely accused of abuse." It's the same way the Innocence Project uses those numbers. Look how many people we've let out. Doesn't matter if they're let out on a technicality. It doesn't matter how they get their conviction overturned. They plead out. We've, I don't know. This is so crazy. They're all innocent. They all go into the number file for their exonerated innocent people. But the detailed circumstances of how they got out are buried.
Yeah, I mean, and it just goes into that thing. You got to go back and look at the court records and see what everybody's seeing what the prosecutors are seeing,
Yeah.
But anybody
why it
who's this,
started.
I'm sorry, William.
Yeah, go ahead.
Anybody who's a serious researcher, or even a true crime fan, I encourage you to get a copy of this book because it will come in handy. If you don't need to know about an expert, the expert doesn't come up in the case that you're looking at. An expert in this book will come up in another case. It's just filled with endless useful information. I've used this book so much. It's been so helpful.
One of the most mind-blowing things to me, like before we close out, something that hasn't been brought up yet. How about the fact that Cheit and Bruck, some of the information that they used or claimed to have used, they didn't have access to? It wasn't found out until 20 years later they were getting that info from the defense lawyer, and then they had to add him as a co-author when they got caught. I'm sorry. So you're saying you didn't see this info because it was sealed, and you're just taking the defense's word for it? That shouldn't be how academic research is done. No. Well, I talked to the guy, and he said he's innocent. That's like, remember Tim Weiner at, I think, New York Times, one of my favorite headlines of all time. CIA investigates its involvement in drug trafficking and finds itself innocent. It was something like that. And it's like, yeah, okay. Well, if the CIA says that the CIA is not selling drugs, then I'm going to take the CIA's word for it. When have they ever lied before?
Right. Wow. Incredible. Yeah, it's an incredible book. There's just so much in there. It's so thoroughly researched too. I mean, it's very dense. I mean,
one of the only complaints I've seen come up multiple times that's valid by someone who's actually read it is people saying it's kind of redundant. Well, yeah. For every point he makes, he gives you 5 different sets of evidence, and that's necessary. It's not fun, but it's necessary because, I think he knew that this book would be attacked. Instead of attacked, it feels like it was buried, like it wasn't attacked. If people had attacked it loudly, then people would have heard of it. But no, instead,
it was ignored. It was the worst.
Ignored.
Yeah, it was just ignored. It just was put into kind of a memory hole type state.
It still seems to be. It's still in print, and it's available. So that's those.
And a lot of the material, even if you don't want to buy the book, is at the Recovered Memory Project, brown.edu.
But buy the book.
Absolutely. I've only got an ebook copy myself, but I think I'm going to eventually have to get a hardcover too. It's expensive. It's not a cheap book, but it's also nearly 600 pages based on 20 years of research. So it's worth the 30, 40, or like if for a hardcover, I think it's like 50 or something. When I buy it, I'm going to buy hardcover because I've only got an ebook right now and it's not the same. I'm glad I was able to export my highlights. That is the only reason why I'm glad I've got the ebook. But yeah, I like to dog ear. I like to highlight physically. So I'm going to have to get the hardback myself eventually.
Yeah, it's there on Amazon. Very expensive, but very worthwhile. I mean, you guys are so smart. You guys know so much about the false memory stuff in the background that I didn't really know that much about. So I'm delighted to have both of you on. Can you guys share where the work you're researching, what you're working on, where people can see your research and contact you? When do you guys start, please?
Oh, well, I guess I'll start. PhilFairbanks.com, PHIL, Fairbanks is spelled in Alaska. So PhilFairbanks.com. If you'd like to hear some of my interviews, ones that I've done with other people and ones other people have done with me, there's an interview section, the true crime and corruption section. One of the things I'm working on right now is a sort of 6 degrees of separation between Jeffrey Epstein and Edge.org and John Brockman and Stuart Brand, and how that ties into, I know it sounds crazy, but there's a connection to Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. I'm also working on hopefully a book-length project about the Caleb McGilvery, better known as Kai the Hitchhiker. You know, and because researching that story is where I ran into this whole, like, you know, like I said, 30 years of lawyers getting slaps on the wrist, lawyers, judges, politicians, prosecutors getting a slap on the wrist. You know, meanwhile, a guy that was, you know, likely drugged and raped by a lawyer in this town where a lot of these cases stem from, you know. So yeah, I'll be hopefully working on the Kai the Hitchhiker and Ted Kaczynski project this year, and hope to have at least one, if not both, you know, ready for publication before 2022 is out.
Oh, good. Well, good luck with that. That sounds interesting. I didn't know the backstory about that. Kai the Hitchhiker.
Yeah. David Livingstone, by the way, I got to give credit to David Livingstone's ordoabcal.ca is where I found the article, which leads to the Das Netz by Lutz Dombeck. And that's where I learned about the connection between, you know, edge.org, which was funded by Epstein, and Brand, and, you know, all these guys that were on the island and on the plane and have pictures of them with little girls, you know, Marvin Minsky, like some of the top scientific minds. And I'm not saying that Jeffrey Epstein and Kaczynski had any direct connection, but by following the less than 6 degrees of separation, I think it'll be an interesting, because it's Das Netz. It's a net. It's a web. You know what I mean? And there's multiple connections between all these points. So it'll be fun, kind of, you know.
The Edge was connected to a lot of like Silicon Valley types too, right?
Exactly. So Silicon Valley, psychedelic counterculture, MK Ultra, cybernetics, and Ted Kaczynski. It's all tied together in multiple ways. Like it's always at least 2 degrees of separation, but never more than 6. You don't need 6 hops to connect Epstein and Kaczynski a dozen ways.
Wow, that's incredible. Also, Minsky, it's 1 degree of separation with 2001, and what was the director's name? Kubrick.
Oh, Kubrick,
yeah. Minsky was an inspiration for Kubrick, and Giuffre, I think, said she was sent by Epstein to Minsky. So, chuck that in your book. Roberta Glass, what have you been up to? You've
just
been busy,
quickly, another little Epstein connection. Andrew Jarecki's father was on Epstein's plane logs. He was an academic. I believe. I want to say his name was Andrew Jarecki. I'm not 100% certain his first name now without my notes, but Andrew Jarecki, who directed
that's the
Capturing
Jinx
the
guy.
Freedmen and the Jinx, his father.
I was wondering why I recognized that name.
And he also funded Jesse Freedman's exoneration campaign.
Wow.
So there's a connection.
That's
there.
a research.
And in the Durst trial, Loftus was at the Durst trial. It is a web. It's a freaking web. It's a freaking web, man.
So
that was a great one. You're saving your best for last.
It's a small world after all. It's a small and sleazy and creepy world after all.
I'm on YouTube at Roberta Glass True Crime Report. I have a Facebook group. Come join the discussion. My Facebook group, Roberta Glass True Crime Report. You can join my Patreon. I'm on iTunes, everything. Twitter at Roberta Glass Pod. I think that's it. I think I hit everything.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You guys were outstanding. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks so much.
It's really a delight, honestly, to talk with people with so much back knowledge, and you guys are tremendous.
Well, I think it's fun because I told you, me and Roberta had talked, briefly, online, but this is the first time we've had a chance to actually, chat like live in person. So I appreciate you getting us together, honestly.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that was great. Let's do it again soon. Let's find another book that people have ignored, but has to be bandied about, so to speak. But you guys have a great one. Have a great weekend. Thanks. You so much.
Thank you.
Take care.